Justice.
All right. Welcome back to Speaking Spatter. I'm Amber.
I'm Josh.
And we're excited to be back again.
Yeah, very, very quickly.
Very, very quickly.
When you text me today, I was like, oh, it is today.
Mm-hmm.
It is Tuesday.
We did record 2 weeks ago. Same day that I have therapy.
So. The same day. Oh, there you go. How was that?
Well, I quit. So.
Why'd you quit?
I just can't afford it right now. So I just said, I'll catch up with you in the new year. And she said, okay.
She said, good luck.
She said, email me if you need it. I said, okay.
Email if you need it. Okay. Is that free? No.
No.
Not at all.
No. I wish therapy was free.
Yeah, no, it's, well, like at my job, we talk to psychiatrists. So, I mean, I know they're not the same, I guess, technically as like a therapist. Well, but yeah, I mean, there's some of them, they're like, oh, I have a private practice, like, and I charge a minimum of $400 an hour. And I'm like,
well, psychiatrists can do that because they also prescribe medication and they handle a lot more things. So, yeah. Still,
though, the fact that you can set your own rate if it's your own private practice.
Well, if you're good, you're good.
If you're good, you're good, I guess. They just listen to people. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just someone give me $100. I'll listen to you.
Did you introduce yourself?
Yeah. I said I'm Josh.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure. Now you're making me question it, but they know who I am.
You never know. What if we have a new listener?
That's true. Well, I'm Josh from the With Josh podcast.
And we're here on Speaking Spatter.
Speaking Spatter.
And we're excited to be back.
What is this, episode 5?
Yes.
5, yeah.
I stopped counting, to be honest.
Oh, we don't count anymore. Let's just say, like, we should tell Charles to name the episode just after the case.
I think that's what he does.
Does he not have any numbers in there?
No.
Okay, well, then this is another episode of Speaking Spatter. So we're going back to the usual format this time.
Yep.
So Amber will have a case for us to hear, and let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump into it.
All right. So today we are going to be talking about Richard Speck. Have you ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
Okay, cool. So he was like, when I was looking up the information, he was one of the first people to commit a mass murder, like in and around Chicago. Chicago. So it's a pretty interesting story. My sources today, I listened to a podcast from Killer Psyche called Killer Psyche.
There you go.
I think the episode title was just Richard Speck. She didn't have any like episode numbers on there.
Okay.
The first mass murder, Richard Speck in Chicago, from chicagohistory.org. In an allthingthat'sinteresting.com article. I talk about a video at the end of this, and the video that I talk about can be found on there. If you're interested, I would definitely go and watch it.
Is it like a documentary or just a quick video, or?
You'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an interesting video. Okay. So Richard Speck was born on December 6, 1941 in Kirkwood, Illinois, and that was about 200 miles west of Chicago. And he was the 7th of 8 children that his mother had. And he and his little sister, so him the 7th and then his little sister the 8th, were significantly younger than the rest of his family.
Okay. I
couldn't find their actual ages, but they, like in a few things that I read, he said it was significantly younger. So Speck's father dies when he was only 6 years old. And then his mother remarries to a traveling insurance salesman. But, you know, like everybody in the 60s, they had a drinking problem and he had a criminal record. And the criminal record went back 25 years. But the mom was like, oh, we'll still marry him. His name was Carl, the stepdad. The stepdad was verbally abusive and would say things specifically to Richard, like that he hates him and that like he's nothing. But he wouldn't say anything like that to the other kids. So it was like he targeted Richard Speck. So that was kind of sad. After his mother remarried to Carl, they moved to Dallas, Texas. And this was one of 12 moves that happened within 6 years, which is crazy.
That's a lot of moving.
It is a lot of moving. At 13, Speck broke into his father's liquor cabinet and he would drink every day. And then shortly after he started breaking into his liquor cabinet and drinking, he was arrested for trespassing. And that was the first of many charges on his record. So, you know, he's like 13, 14, and he already has a criminal record. He regularly had run-ins with law enforcement due to his excessive drinking, for public disturbances. and so many other things. Speck received his first major prison sentence in July of 1963 at the age of 21. And he was convicted of forging his signature on a check and for a robbery of a grocery store.
Forgery of a signature on a check.
Yeah.
A crime that'll probably never be committed again.
I still write checks.
Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well,
I had to write them for our last house that we rented, and then I write them.
Balance your checkbook every month or something?
No, I don't need to. I don't write that many checks.
Oh, okay. You're wrong.
No more s'mores. So he moved back to Illinois. So after he got out and he had a few more run-ins with prison, he moved back to Illinois to live with his sister in 1966. And his brother-in-law helped him get set up as a sailor because I guess back then you could just sign up to be a seaman and go on voyage, not voyages, but go and serve kind of thing as a sailor or a seaman.
Like in the military or just on a boat?
In the military.
Oh, okay. So he just signed up for the, what do you call it? For the Navy?
It didn't ever specifically said Navy. It said sailor.
As a sailor. Okay.
I have the name of it in here somewhere. We'll get there. So he was trying to get a sailor job and trying to get that started, but he never really could. And he kept going back to look for work at the National Maritime Union, which is where he signed up to be a sailor, and he didn't have any luck. So that's his background. So Wednesday, July 13th, that's when this mass murder took place, and we're going to get started. So Wednesday, July 13th, Speck began his massacre night by day drinking and then sexually assaulting a woman he met at the bar, Ella Hooper. He then robbed her, took her pistol, dressed in all black, and made his way out of her house and down the street. So down the street, there were 8 women living in a townhome they shared while they were going to nursing school. 5 of them were American women and 3 of them were Filipino women. Mm-hmm. According to some research, the women only had a few weeks left in their program before they graduated. So from what I understood, it was this slew of townhomes that the school rented out to the older nursing students so they could, live on campus but off campus. Excuse me. And still be able to go to school. So I guess the first 2 years they were required to live on campus, and then their last 2 years they could live at these houses that the university rented out.
Okay, got it, but just not technically on the campus.
Yeah.
So, but close by, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. So 3 of the women took the day off of work just to rest. And that evening, the Filipino women started to make a traditional meal for the house because they were missing home and they were excited that they were graduating and whatnot. And so everything seemed to be going as normal. The women went to sleep around 10:30, except for 2 of them. One had gone out on a date and one had gone to see some friends. So after Richard had been, I'm just going to call him Speck. After Speck had been day drinking, sexually assaulted Ella, and then robbed her, took her pistol, and was leaving the bar, around 11 p.m., he walked up to the home. In the home, it was a 2-story townhome.
And this is just a random home. He doesn't know who
He has no idea.
Okay.
Walked with the townhome. He walked to the back, removed the kitchen window screen, opened up the window, and crawled inside. So lock your windows, people. He walked upstairs and knocked on the bedroom door of Corazon Amor. I'm going to call her Cora. Cora opened up the door because she heard her knock at her bedroom door. Mm-hmm. So she's like, what the heck? So she opened up her door, and when she opened it, she was greeted with a gun, a man dressed in black. He then ordered Cora and her roommate into the primary bedroom that 4 other girls shared. Then he threatened them with a gun and a knife, and he made them all sit on the floor. He told him, he was like, I just need money to get to New Orleans. Give me everything you have. So the nurses, scavenged their purses that they had in the bedroom. They couldn't go downstairs for anything. Mm. And they gathered about $35 and they gave it to him. Speck then used torn bed sheets to tie the woman's hands behind their backs. At around 11:20, 22-year-old Gloria Davy came home from her date. She used the house phone downstairs to call the house mother to let her know that she had arrived. And when she went upstairs, Speck greeted her and made her join the others. Then the second girl came home, and he also tied her up with the rest of the nurses in that primary bedroom. Okay, that's where it gets a little tough. Richard then spent 5 hours taking each girl out of the room, but none of them like screamed or fought him.
And you said there's how many of them? 8?
There was 8.
8 of them, okay.
Yeah. None of them like screamed or fought him. According to Cora's account, she had said that nobody like screamed or fought because they thought that if they just complied to whatever he was doing, they would let him go. Mm-hmm. The American nurses wanted to like keep it that way, like calm and collected. But according to accounts that I read and listened to, the Filipino nurses were like, no, like we need to fight him. We need to scream. But they all agreed to just like stay calm. Cora said that nobody had screamed when they were taken away, but she could hear muffled cries from the woman and then the bathroom water running after each one. So he took them like individually and then came back for another kind of thing over a course of 5 hours. The girls in the main bedroom being held tried to figure out what to do, but they couldn't really figure out what to do. So they just kind of
sat there.
As more women began to be removed from the room, Cora had the idea to roll underneath one of the beds and stay there. So another weird thing was Richard took each woman to each of a different room. So he didn't like kill one girl. He didn't kill them all in the same room. He took them to like each a different room and killed them. The woman, Gloria, who had come home from the date, had fallen asleep on one of the bunks because she was a little tipsy from her date, specifically the one that Cora had rolled under. And when Speck came in and saw that she was sleeping on the bed, he raped her, brought her downstairs, and then killed her. She was the only one to have been found raped. Okay. So the rest of them...
He just killed them.
Yeah. Once Richard had killed Gloria, he came back to the bedroom and rifled through the handbags that were in the main bedroom, and then he left. So Cora's still under the bed at this time. It was obvious that he had like lost count of how many women were in the house because you only killed 7. There were 8.
I mean, it's a lot though, 8. And like you said, I mean, it took over 5 hours. Like,
yeah. So
I'm assuming it's dark, maybe. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's probably not bright, in the house or anything.
Right. So she's still under the bed, and she didn't move from her hiding spot. After Speck left, he didn't really change his pattern of behavior. He went and checked in at a hotel about 17 miles from the townhome, began early drinking the next morning, bar hopping, and hired a sex worker. So the next morning at 5 a.m., Cora can hear like her roommate's alarm going off to like get up, and she waits until 6 a.m. because she like wanted to make sure nobody was there. And because she didn't hear anything, she crawled out from underneath the bed, unbound her hands. Cora leaves the room to find all 7 of her housemates dead and nude. Some were stabbed, some were strangled, and some unfortunately experienced both. Cora was so terrified that she went back into the main bedroom, pushed out the window, and crawled onto the ledge above the door, and just started screaming. For about 5 minutes, she was screaming, "They're dead. They're dead. Oh my God, I'm the only one alive. My friends are dead. I'm the only one alive. Oh my God, they're dead." So a nurse next door can hear Cora screaming and enter the house. However, when she entered the house, she quickly turned around and got the house mom from the next door because there was tragedy everywhere.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just a bloody scene.
Yeah, and then the neighbor that the other nursing student went to go get. So the neighbor that the other nursing student went to go get went back inside to go get Cora, and lead her outside. The house mother had called the hospital and asked for help. Thankfully, an officer just had to be driving by when they flagged him down, and the officer immediately called for backup after he saw what had happened. So that sex worker that Speck had hired the next morning, so after he like went day drinking and bar hopping, that the next morning the sex worker informed the hotel staff that Speck had a loaded gun in his room and called the police. But at this time, the extended police, the street police, didn't know what of the murder or have a name for him or anything.
Okay.
So when they got to him and they saw that he had a loaded gun, they just confiscated the gun, and left.
Because you said he stole the woman's pistol because he assaulted
First.
before the mass murder, but he never used that pistol on any of the girls.
No.
Okay.
So when the sex worker saw that he had it the next morning, she went to the hotel staff and was like, something's wrong.
Bro's got
He's got a gun.
Yeah.
And then the police came and took it, and they went about their day. Because at the time, they didn't know about
They didn't know what had happened. Okay.
Cora, thankfully, after they flagged down that police officer, she was able to give a very detailed description of Speck, even calling out one of the tattoos on his arm that said "Born to Raise Hell." So, because it was so gruesome and horrendous, the 60 Chicago homicide and burglary unit set out to find Speck. They entered a gas station where the attendant informed them that a sailor just 2 days prior had asked if they could keep luggage there while he works for a job. So on July 11th. And the attendant told him where he was looking, where the sailor was looking for. So the detective went down to the National Maritime Union hiring hall to inquire about it. To inquire about this man, who at the time they didn't know his name. The gas station attendant was just this guy came in, left his luggage, and came back and picked it up. But I know he was going to the National Maritime Union, so the police went there. The National Maritime Union Hall confirmed the name Richard Speck and had matched the description Cora gave, including the tattoo. So
Cover up those tattoos, man.
I know, man.
They're dead giveaways.
They're just what are they, markings to let people know who you are?
They're just distinguishable, yeah.
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 So I say that as I have tattoos.
Right.
It's
distinguishable.
Fine. So Cora was then shown a lineup of 188 photos and picked out Speck immediately of them. Because Speck had a record in Dallas and other records, the police were able to match Speck's fingerprints to the scene. And then Speck was placed at the top of the FBI's most wanted fugitive list.
So they still haven't caught him at this point? Okay. But they know who he is.
But they know his name.
They know, and she's picked him out of a lineup, so they know it's him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Police were able to then trace him up to a hotel in Raleigh Ride, but Speck had already moved down to a hotel on Skid Row, all still in that Chicago area. Mm-hmm. The next day, Speck's photo was released in addition to a description of him. Speck could clearly see that the police were circling in, and he had attempted suicide at the hotel he was staying at. But the guest staying next to him could hear that something was going on, so he opened the door to Speck's hotel room and found that he had cut himself using a broken wine bottle, and called the hotel manager, and they called the ER, and so then he was rushed to the ER. So a surgical resident at the ER thought Speck looked familiar, and he had the nurse go get him the paper he was reading that morning. And the resident looked at the paper and looked at Speck and looked at the paper and looked at Speck, and he was like, this is the guy. And specifically because he read that the tattoo on his arm saying "Born to Raise Hell" clearly marked Speck. And so since the tattoo matched what was described in the paper, he called the police. Thankfully. So it's only 2 days later or a day later. So Speck remained in the hospital because he was actually ended up diagnosed with a heart condition involving the sac of his heart. Because your heart sits in a sac, and there was something wrong with the sac of his heart. So he ended up staying in the hospital for a little bit. But then later that week, police had Cora disguise as a nurse, enter the hospital, enter his room, confirm that it was him.
Why would they make her go in there?
Right? That's trauma. Like
the dude murdered 7 of my friends.
She listened to him murder 7 of her friends.
And she did it.
So Cora confirmed it was Speck, and they charged him. And I wrote, can we talk about how traumatic this is?
Yeah, sheesh.
Fucking insane.
Like I picked him out of a lineup of 180 plus photos.
Like we really need me to also ID
Right.
him. So during his trial, which began on April 3rd, 1967, Speck claimed to have no recollection of the murders, something that did not bother the prosecution because they already had an eyewitness to identify him. So the trial was a national sensation. It was one of the first times in the 20th century of American history that someone had killed so many people at random. Because remember, he was just walking home from a bar and was like, let me walk behind this house and see if I can open up their window. Like, he didn't know anybody. He didn't know these houses were there before.
Well, the fact he didn't even use the gun that he had.
Yeah, that too. That some were stabbed and some were strangled.
Going towards, like he was going to start shooting them.
No, he just used the gun as like a ruse.
Right, just to get them to do what he would get them into that room and have them bound and all of that.
For many at the time, it was seen as the end of an innocence era, when it was never assumed that somebody could kill helpless victims without clear motivation. And I feel like if you like do look back on other cases or history, like in the late 60s is when like people started to lock their doors and lock their cars and things like that, because we started to realize that the world is not sunshine and rainbows.
Right. You start to realize that there's people that just do those types of things for no apparent reason.
Yeah. It's insane. So Cora testifies in court, thankfully. And since she was actually one of the first people to interact with Speck that night, she said that she heard a knock on her door. She opened it, was greeted with a gun by a man dressed in black. And then the prosecutor asked if she saw the man in the room, like in court this day. She says yes, gets up from the stand, walks over to where he and his attorney were sitting, gets inches from his face and points at him and says, "This is the man."
This is him.
And after only 45 minutes of deliberation, the jury came back with a guilty verdict of Speck. So when juries come back that fast, it's either yes or no. And like, so it's like, it's kind of scary sometimes because you're like, oh shit, did we not give enough evidence? But the jury came back in 45 minutes and said he was guilty. He was initially given the death sentence, but this was reduced to a life in prison sentence in 1971 when the Supreme Court ruled that people opposed the death, that the people were opposed to the death penalty because it was unconstitutional. So Speck served his sentence at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. Throughout his time there, he regularly got caught with drugs and moonshine, so he didn't stop his violent, crazy behavior. He was given the nickname the Birdman because he kept a pair of sparrows that flew into his cell. So like he like had pet sparrows in his cell.
He's like Brooks on Shawshank Redemption. He has a Jake.
I haven't seen that.
You ever seen Shawshank?
No.
Yeah, that was good. Thank you for unlocking that. That was great.
I will never forget that.
Anyways.
So Richard Speck died on December 5th, 1991, on the eve of his 50th birthday from a heart attack. So while he was in prison, some like weird things happened, or he decided to participate in some weird thing. After he died, a video was released that showed him doing drugs with inmates. Specifically, there was one inmate that he was sitting with, and Richard had a new look in this video. He was taking smuggled hormones to have breasts, and that he would also perform sexual acts on other inmates for alcohol and cocaine. So in the video, he's asked about the murder, and he replies saying, "I was just having fun." And when he asked why, he said it just wasn't their night. The video also goes on for him saying like he wasn't sorry for what he had done. And then the video at this time cuts to a therapist that he was seeing while he was in prison. And the therapist explained that during the time of his sentencing, the therapist was the only person that he could really like trust or believe that he could open up to. And the therapist said that the reason why he was taking hormones and trying to like act like a woman, like he would like satin underwear and like just do like feminine things. The therapist said Speck believed that by giving up his manhood, he found his own way to punish himself. And the therapist said that Speck wanted to put himself through the same things that he put the women through. So it's like weird. He was saying like, I was just having fun. It wasn't their night. Like, I'm not sorry. But then he's like punishing himself by
right,
basically being a sex worker in prison.
Right.
So this next part's a little funky too. I could only find this on the podcast I listened to. So Killer Psyche. She went on to explain that after he died, his brain was kept for research, to be done on the hippocampus. I forget like what
it controls.
I'm pretty sure it's like decisions and like,
like choices and stuff.
Yeah. So, however, when the brain was being prepared from one lab to be sent to another lab, it was like boxed up and everything. And
Vanished?
then, yeah, the brain went missing. But I searched this. I like Richard Speck, brain missing brain, Speck.
Something, right?
I tried to research it. I couldn't find any like articles about it, but this podcast is like not our podcast, but the podcast that I listen to, I feel like it's pretty credible.
Okay.
So
it's a reputable.
yeah. So she was saying that the brain went missing. The woman on the podcast said that the brain was being researched as the hippocampus, there it is, controls long-term memories, and if damaged can cause a lot of different behavioral issues.
Oh.
She said that the brain was already being looked at and being prepared to go to another facility when it was stolen. So
so they did some research.
They did some research. They were packing it up, boxing it up to go to another university.
And it was gone.
And when the person went to go pick up the packages, like the UPS worker or whatever, came to pick up the packages, the brain was gone. Like not just the box empty, the box was gone. Like all of the boxes were gone. So his brain could be out there somewhere.
Why?
Right. So I just want to take a moment now and remember the women who tragically lost their lives. Gloria Jean Davy, 22, Mary Ann Jordan, 20, Susan Ferris, 21, Valentina Passion, 23, Patricia Matsuk, 20, Merlita Guerrero, 23, Pamela Wilkening, 20, and Nina Schmale, 24.
They're all young.
Yeah.
Just about done what you said with nursing school?
They only had a couple weeks left in their program. So I think it's interesting, and one of the reasons why I included kind of his background is because we've talked about this before, I think, on a With Josh episode, not necessarily a Speaking Spatter episode, but, nature versus nurture.
Right.
He was abused verbally, physically as a kid. He started drinking really young.
Like you said, singled out.
Yeah.
Almost like it was just directed at him and nobody else.
Right. Like his stepfather really honed in on him.
Well, as soon as you said you started drinking at 13, it's like that's a learned behavior. Like your stepfather drinks, so now you're going to drink.
Well, alcohol in your brain that young does so much damage. It's insane. And the fact that he was getting drunk at 13.
Yeah.
That's.
And they said daily, right?
Yeah.
Like getting drunk daily.
Yeah. So, I don't feel bad for him. I don't feel bad for the decisions he made, but it's just an interesting thing to look at of his background and where he came from. And, these are the reasons why he made those poor decisions. And these are the reasons why he murdered those women.
Right.
His brain wasn't functioning
Or do you
properly.
say it's just, like we said it for the Yosemite killer? What was his name?
Casey Stainer.
Casey Stainer. Like we said on that episode too, like it's like some of these people don't stand a chance.
Right.
Like they're born into these horrible circumstances, and I mean they know for a fact that if you're sexually assaulted as a person, it's like you're 3 times more likely to sexually assault another person when in your lifetime. So
another thing that stuck out to me was how many times they moved within 6 years. We talked about this. My therapist told me one time that if you have a big move before the age of 8, it has a dramatic, not traumatic, but a dramatic impact on your brain. And I was like, well, that would make sense. That was a big turning point in my life when we moved. And, same with you. You're like, that was a big turning point in my life too. The moves don't have to necessarily be bad, but it's like how your family handles the moves after. Right. So the fact that they moved when he was 6 and then moved 11 more times within 6 years is got a lot of impact on that too.
Right. Especially because like they say, like you need stability.
Right.
You need to be able to go to the same house, go to the same school. Because like I said, I only switched schools once in my life, like during the middle of a school year. And it's, even then I can't remember it being different. Like there was stuff that they had learned already that we hadn't gone over yet.
Right.
I remember here in Arizona, you do two big things when you were in 6th grade. When I was a kid, you go to, what is it? You do like a space camp, and then you go to the Renaissance Festival. Like those are the two big things that you do in 6th grade.
That's fun.
Yeah, and so in 6th grade, when I switched over schools, when I went back to my old school that I had been at, they had already, my school at Canyon Rim had not gone to space camp. When I went back to Boulder Creek, they had already gone.
No.
Yeah, so I didn't get to do that.
Yeah.
I went to the Renaissance Festival, but they switched it. What they did Renaissance Festival first at this one, Space Camp second. Boulder Creek did the opposite.
Gotcha.
Space Camp first, Renaissance Festival second. So I didn't get to do that. So yeah, I can imagine, but doing that 6 times
Right.
over 11 years, like that's insane. Like you need stability in anything that you do.
Over 6 years.
Over 6 years.
11 times in 6 years.
11 times in 6 years. Like you need stability in anything that you do.
Right. And whether that was moving houses or like moving down the street, it wasn't specific, but it doesn't matter. Moving really can impact a kid.
I mean, when you're living apartment to apartment or rental house to rental house, like you move once every 2 years and it sucks.
Yeah.
You're like, half the time when they up the rent, you're just like, well, I don't really want to move again.
I do it as an adult. I move every
Yeah.
2 years and I'm tired of it.
You're like, but you're like, like, oh, the rent's a little more expensive. But I really don't want to move.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's same thing. Like he was born in horrible circumstances. Again, like you said, doesn't excuse what happened because
Right.
his stepdad, while not being a very good person, also didn't go and murder 7 women. You know what I mean?
Yeah, correct. I mean, he had an extensive criminal record, but as far as I know, he didn't murder any people. So it's just, it's sad to think about that. What could have happened? What could his life have been like if maybe his mom didn't remarry? If she just was a single mom who worked 2 jobs, cue Reba.
No, you're right. It's interesting to think. Like I said, I get why people want to know these things, like why they want to study his brain, or like you said, people want to know why. Like, why would you do that? Like, what kind of made you gear towards that? And for me, like I said, I've always thought like there's no rhyme or like we'll never understand why.
Yeah.
But like I said, it is interesting. Like you move that many times, an abusive stepfather, drinking at an early age. Like obviously his dad had an extensive criminal record, so why wouldn't he be the same?
Right.
And you're right. You just think like, but then, it also goes back to people from single family homes also have, disadvantages as well.
Right. And they don't murder people. Sometimes like the most brilliant minds come out of single family poor homes.
That's why, the argument's always there. Cause you're like, there's people that have come from the shittiest of circumstances have been great. And there's people that have come from the best circumstances and are shitty. And it's hard to put a rhyme or reason. I just think people are crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we'll ever understand why. Like what possesses a person to be like, you know what? I'm walking home, so let's just go into this house and see what happens. Like
I already raped
one woman. Especially since you're there already.
Yeah. And he had no idea what he was walking into because he went in through the kitchen. What if there was like a big dog in there ready to eat him? Like who fucking knows?
He didn't care. But like you said, it's just him saying like I was just having fun, or that it just wasn't their night. Again, it's like any person who does stuff like that. Like you have to disassociate emotion from yourself. Like you don't process that because, like I said, any sane person would see a woman scared and be like, hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, especially if you like, how people walk into the wrong houses sometimes, or you like you go to they're thinking they're at a friend's house, and they're not.
I've done that before.
And if you see somebody like answer the door and you scare them, like instantly you would want to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like you don't need to be scared. This is my fault. Like
I'm at the wrong house. I'm so sorry. Like,
right. You would be like, I don't want to cause anyone fear, but you just have to disassociate yourself and you're like, I don't feel any remorse. I don't think, again, maybe he did feel remorse and kind of showed it in his own way.
He did, because his therapist said that he was taking those, the hormones and like dressing in feminine clothes and, doing sexual acts with men because he felt bad, because he felt sorry. He wanted to punish himself, which means you felt bad for what you did. But in the video that was released, he said that he didn't feel bad. So it's just, it's it's so weird. Like his outer person is like, no, like I didn't feel bad, blah, blah, but then his inner conscious is like, no, dude, we fucked up.
And I don't, for me, I would even argue that I don't know if he feels bad for the women themselves. It's almost like his subconscious is telling him like that you deserve to feel what they felt.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I think that's a fair point.
Yeah. I mean, you can, who knows? I mean, we'll never know what he was thinking, but yeah, because you're right. It is strange that you're saying one thing and then his therapist is like, no, he's doing these things. And based on my professional opinion, this is why he's doing it. Because you're right. It's weird that you would just suddenly be, okay, I'll perform sexual acts.
Right.
For drugs and alcohol. Like I said, taking hormones to be more feminine. Like I feel like it's just, you could dive into that a lot.
Yeah, I feel like there's a whole other like.
I'm sure you could get a whole group of psychiatrists in a room and they could just riff on that for a long time. Just what it means or why he's doing that. And
I'd be really interested to see what was found with the little research that did happen on his brain before it went missing.
Maybe that thing's on the black market. I mean, honestly,
if you're jelly.
Well, because you think like. People are really into true crime. People are really into serial killers. They're really into dark things. And if you have money and someone's like, hey, like this is the brain of the first, modern day, mass murderer.
Yeah.
It would not put it past me for someone to be like, yeah, like I want to own that. That's just something that I want in my collection. Yeah. I have money and I don't know what to do with it. So
let's just do it.
And I'm like, you could give it to the channel or something, for us to, pocket a little bit. I don't know.
You could like donate it to charity.
Yeah, you could donate it to P. He's like, no.
You could like give it to the dogs.
How much did you pay for that brain? He's like, oh, like $2 million.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm counting pennies to buy groceries, so we're in the same situation. I get it.
I have to use coupons to buy groceries.
Right. That's fine though.
But it's fine.
1 million, 2 million, it's fine. But yeah, no, that's an interesting case. So like you said, technically the first mass murderer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like you said, well, it brings us back to like the milk carton kids. Like these are just events that took place that made people start to realize like, I can't leave my window unlocked all the time. I can't
let my kid walk to the grocery store by himself.
Right. I can't just, get into people's cars. I can't hitchhike across the country anymore. Like,
right.
Because like you said, even though I don't know if it happened at such a high rate back then, maybe there's research to show that it did anyways, like that there's just as much, because I'm a big believer that societal pressures have driven people crazier nowadays. This is why I think like mass shootings are up.
Yeah, so I think like mass shootings have increased, but I think the amount of like serial killers and like mass murders like this have decreased. Yeah,
that could be right. Because I just believe that a lot more people are angry or commit these crazy atrocities, because I tell people all the time, I'm like, society's made to break you down.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not meant to work 40 hours a week, getting underpaid, struggling to financially.
Only having 2 days off.
Right. Only having 2 days off, worrying about if you're going to make rent, worrying about if you're going to be able to eat. Like that breaks a person down and you become desperate or you lash out, whatever it may be. So I'm like, this world, I think, especially where we're at now, breaks you down.
Yeah.
Very, very easily. But I think, yeah, like you said, back then, I don't think that there was as many people doing these kinds of things because it wasn't like that. I mean, how often do we say, like, people were hitchhiking across the country?
Right.
Doing odd end jobs just to pay for stuff. Or like I said, people would, have like big old like communities. Like, and they were just like, oh, we're all just living here and we're all, growing food, or we're all, getting donated, whatever it was. Like, you could definitely go out on your own and be okay. Whereas like now it's like if you were trying to hitchhike across the country with no money, like
first of all, nobody would pick you up because everybody knows not to pick up hitchhikers.
And anyone who is picking you up, like how are you going to trust them?
Right.
Because why are they picking you up?
We could have a whole Mary Vincent case on our hand again.
Right. Or who was it? I can't remember what case it was. I don't know if it was you that was talking about it when it was, or maybe I saw it on a documentary where a person escaped a serial killer before he actually killed him. It was who liked to kill like young boys. It was like a serial killer that killed young boys, and every
serial killer in the 60s and 70s.
But I just remember there was an account. Maybe it was that channel that I watched that I saw our last story on. he was talking about, I can't remember it's a famous serial killer, but he used to pick up people hitchhiking. And I guess the guy recounts the person like once he was convicted, and they believe that he was actually going to be his first victim. But he said something in his mind basically told him like alarms were ringing, so he got out of his vehicle.
Yeah.
In the like when they had like a stop sign or a traffic light, he got out of the vehicle and left. But he believes that they believe that by the timeline that he would have been his first victim, or he was planning on doing something to him at that point. So I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look at that. But I thought that was pretty interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, you can't. Yeah, it's interesting to see these events that kind of led up to where we're at now. Because like you said, you're right. If a kid's 7 years old and I see them at a store by themselves, it's like, why are they out here? Why like somebody could just grab them? Like, I mean, even now we hear like cases with sex trafficking where people get taken in like at events, like
at like concerts.
There was the 14-year-old girl that got taken during an NBA Finals game.
Right. Yeah, I remember you talking about that. Yeah, it's crazy how people just go missing like that, and it's scary how our world has evolved like that.
And it's scary how, like I said, that happens every day right now. Like there's girls being kidnapped, sex trafficked, drugged. I think my mom was even telling me about a coworker that has a friend that they went to the maybe the Arizona State Fair, and her 16-year-old, I don't know if she was 15 or 16, like went missing when she went to the bathrooms, and she had to like search through the bathrooms. And she said that she went into one of the women's room. There was a woman standing in there, and she's like, "Have you seen a 16-year-old girl? This is what she looks like, dark hair." And the woman said no, and she said something about the way she said it. She just kind of forced her way in, and she found her daughter with her hair already colored, and she had already been drugged. And they think that this woman was caught like being a sex trafficker, like luring her in there. And I'm like, that's like in the middle of middle of the fair, with tons of witnesses. But like you said, it's just you color their hair different, you put a hood over them, you hold a gun to their back and say like, don't
drug them, and they look like tired or sleepy walking.
Right.
Out. Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna look normal. I mean, if I went to, it's like if you go to EDC or a rave and you see someone walking out that looks a little intoxicated, that's not gonna stand out. Right. It's not gonna stand out whatsoever. So yeah, I'm like, it's insane that happens in, like you said, in public places.
Right. And I think like events like this that happened, like I said in the thing, it was like the turn of the century when people started being like, oh shit, our world's not safe. And still we're finding like things are not safe about our world.
Right.
So it's just weird. It's weird to think about that safety issues weren't thought about back then like they are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my mom even tells me, and my mom, when she was a kid, she was born in late 60s. So she was a kid, in the 70s. And she even talks about that. Like there was places that she went with her friends. Like they would go out to like the creek. They would go walking around town. And she's like, you can't do that anymore. She's like, I wouldn't let my kid go anywhere without me.
I remember being a kid and walking up a busy ass street to go to Taco Bell with my friends. We would like find change in the couch and walk to Taco Bell and get bean burritos and cheesy quesadillas.
Yeah, my grandma.
And we would walk back by ourselves. Granted, we had phones, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, because I remember when I was a kid, my great grandma, her house was down the street from a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
And there would be times, I mean, maybe we were junior high. So maybe at the time we were like 12, 13. And yeah, I remember us, same thing. Like we would find money, or we would like get money from our parents or something. And I remember even being like late at night.
Yeah.
We would it would probably like 11, everyone's asleep. My cousins and I would just sneak out the back door, like the back exit, and we would just walk down to 7-Eleven and hang out there, grab a drink, and then walk back. And it's just,
I did that before school. So I used to walk to middle school, and there was like a liquor store just, like a quarter mile out of my way, but it was kind of on my way to school. So I would have my friend meet me at the corner. We would go into this like convenient liquor store, buy Laffy Taffy ropes, and then walk to school. But I never told my mom.
Right.
I didn't dare to tell my mom because like, I knew I'd get in trouble, but I was like, I want my Laffy Taffy rope.
Right. And you're like, and if somebody had taken you, it's like,
my parents would have never known. Yeah.
Like nobody knew where you were at.
Right.
So it's like, whoa.
The last thing my parents knew, I was walking to school.
Right. She was supposed to be at school. Yeah, it's scary. And I think, sex trafficking is definitely, definitely scares me just because I'm like, it's crazy that women and men of all ages, like even kids, like it's not like they're like, oh, you're a child, so you're immune to it. I'm like, no, like that's what they're looking for.
Yeah.
A 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and doing God knows what to them.
Shit. Yeah, all you'd have to say to me is, I've got puppies, and I'd be like, show me the puppies. It's like, it's so easy. And even I would hate to think it, but like I would fall victim. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, but
they're smart enough. Yeah.
Right. There was one time Sean and I went, to San Diego, and we went on the USS Midway tour. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to go look at something.
That's still voted as one of the best tours in America.
Oh, highly recommend. It's amazing. He wanted to go look at something over to the left, and I was like, I don't want to look at that. But he was ahead of me, so he didn't see that I had kept going straight. Mm-hmm. And then he was like, a few minutes later, I just hear, Amber, Amber, Amber. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm right here. And he was like, somebody can take you. You can't leave me.
Jesus.
And like at the time I was like,
right. And you think you're being silly.
Yeah.
Right,
like we're the only people on this part of the ship. And he was like, no, like seriously, we're in a town that we don't know. Like I'm not like telling you what you have to do, but like, tell me you didn't want to go in there. And I would have been fine. And I was like,
right.
Oh,
because you're right. I mean, it just happens. Boom.
Right.
Quick. Gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you said, if there's no motive or it's just random, like how do you track it? There's no, you know what I mean? It's like not like somebody or I don't know. Yeah, definitely scary. I'm definitely a person that's too trusting.
Oh yeah.
I don't lock my doors very often. Like if it was up to me, like I remember when we used to live together, I'd be like, dude, just keep the front. No
but you always locked your bedroom door.
That's true. I don't want you guys walking in on me. Or just being like, hey Josh, like you can't just walk in here. Yeah. Yeah, like I'm just like, no one's coming in here. Like it's fine. I'm a big believer that there's more good in the world than bad. I hope that there is. I was like, but the bad pretty bad
is
sometimes.
Very scary.
So no, that was a good case.
Thanks. I know we like these one-offs. So this is one that actually, like, when people say men think about the Roman Empire 3 times a day.
Okay, I just heard about that, and I'm like, what men are thinking about the Roman Empire 3 times a day?
A lot of men think about the Roman Empire. This is one of my Roman empires.
Okay.
This specific case, because
my sister was just talking about that.
So hard with me.
She was just talking about that, and she said that her Roman Empire is the saga between 2 of the women on the women's national team.
Oh, yeah. She was talking to me about that too.
Yeah. So,
I
said, this is your Roman, like, this is what she's like, yes, like this, she's like, I've been following these people for the past like 10 years now. So
my other Roman Empire is Tom Holland doing the lip sync battle to Umbrella on Lip Sync Battle.
Oh,
when he was with Zendaya.
Yeah.
But he did it to Umbrella, and he's like in heels, and then it starts raining on the stage, and he like does a backflip and like splashes the water up. I love it. I'm excited just thinking about
You're like, that's my Roman Empire.
One other
yeah,
thing.
my sister's like, do you think about the Roman Empire? I was all, no, like, what do you, why would I think about the Roman Empire? And she's like, it's just a trend that men think about the Roman Empire consistently or more often than you would think.
I would say like, maybe like once a month I think of it, especially with our country, the way it's falling apart now. I'm like,
yeah,
that's kind of similar events that are happening.
That is a good comparison. Yeah, what did we say during 2020? I was like, yeah, famine, infighting, economical problem. Like I said, Rome brought down itself, and maybe we're heading that way as well. But
exactly,
that's a topic for our political channel when that starts.
I will not be on that. It's too much of a headache for me.
Amber will be on there. The hashtag Get Amber on a political show.
No thanks.
But I know I appreciate the story. Like I said, I really always like stories of survival as well. Mm-hmm. That she was able to face him in court. That she went into the room to confirm him.
Well, and that she stayed under the bed while her friend was being raped. He was raping her on top of the bed.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it would be tough because you would definitely have survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
Thinking like, I could have done this, I could have done that. But it's like you can, if you tried something and it didn't go well, you'd be dead as well. And who knows if they ever catch him.
He had a gun and a knife. You can't bring a knife to a gunfight, and you can't bring a gun to a knife fight. Like, you're losing both. Right.
And I'm like, and like I said, it was the 60s. There's no DNA. It's random, so they don't know. There's no grudges against them. So I'm like, who knows if they ever catch him if you don't do what you did and survive. And I think, again, that's another another cool aspect that she, like I said, one, went into that room disguised and identified him. And then two, gets up in his face and is like, this is him.
Yep.
And makes sure that he gets put away for life.
Yep.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
We've talked about the death penalty as well.
We have. I don't know if specifically I'm with Speaking Spatter, but definitely I'm with Josh.
Right. Talked about the death penalty, which I don't believe in. But yeah, I think someone definitely does deserve to sit behind bars, and however he punished himself, that's, you do what you got to do, I guess. But yeah, I thought that was really cool. That's a cool thing for her to do, and to make sure that, again, he doesn't do it to anybody else, and he never got the opportunity to kill again. Because like we always say, somebody like that, if he doesn't get caught, he's gonna kill somebody else.
Right.
It would have just been a matter of time before he did it. So I really like that.
Cool. Well, we'll be back in a couple weeks. This will be released in a little bit. So
yeah, this will take a little bit longer,
not
right?
Today, but
what did we say?
we're going to release once a month.
Once a month. So yeah, stay tuned for that. As always, you can find us on our socials.
Instagram at Speaking Spatter Pod.
And then you can find us on our YouTube channel and Spotify, which are both Speaking Spatter. Is it Speaking Spatter podcast or just Speaking Spatter?
Just Speaking Spatter.
Speaking Spatter.
Shout out to our friend Lauren, who did our logo. I don't think we've shouted her out yet.
I don't think so. Yeah, thank you for reminding me
thanks,
that.
Lauren, for doing that.
Yeah, our really talented friend Lauren.
Shout out to Hopes Up, who does our intro. So
does the intro music for With Josh and Speaking Spatter. Crazy. I think about it all the time. I'm like, God, like, people are talented.
That's your Roman Empire.
That's our Roman Empire. Yeah, thank you for shouting out Lauren, because I think about it when I'm watching the episode.
Well, we've done it on our media, but we haven't done it on the episode.
So yeah, shout out to you, Lauren. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, we love you, Lauren.
It's a great logo. It's scary. It's kind of creepy. It's
perfect.
It's really great. So, but yeah, we'll catch you guys on the next one. And as always,
remember to support your local drag. I'm Amber.
I'm Josh. And
this was Speaking Spatter.
We'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.